And here we are in this spirit body and material body, and it doesn't matter whether we're a spirit right now or we're in the physical body right now. It doesn't matter. The same principles apply, that those two things are not the real self. That is the real self. And the real self has a collection of beliefs, emotions, passions, desires, longings, and the collection of those things we've called, and I've told you about, called the soul condition. And it's very, very important to understand the soul condition, because it's the soul condition that determines exactly what happens when you die and afterwards. It's the soul condition that determines everything. Because all of God's laws are fixed and unmovable. The only thing that can change is your own condition, and therefore your own interaction with all of God's laws. So when my condition is of a lower desire of love, or a lower state of love, I'll have a totally different experience than if my condition is in a higher state of love. And if my condition is a heightened state of fear and terror, then I'll have a totally different experience when I pass over than if my condition is in a lower state of fear and terror. And if I know what's going to happen when I pass in the spirit world, obviously that's going to be a lot easier on me when I pass than if I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously the experience is going to be vastly different. So it's my emotions, passions, intentions, desires, belief, in other words, all of my soul condition that determines what happens when I die. That's it, really. Now, for some of us will have, oh, well, that's fine, that's great. Oh, I think that's a great idea. That means I've got total control of what happens when I die. Well, it's not quite like that, unfortunately, because your soul condition is as God measures it. It's not the condition that we imagine ourselves to be in. Right? This is very different, because we can easily imagine ourselves to be in one condition, but actually be in a very, very vastly different condition. And if it's our real soul condition, as God measures our soul condition, in other words, as the soul condition reflects love from God's perspective and not from our own, that determines what happens after our passing, then it's very, very important for us, if we really want to invest in our future, as the saying would go, for us to understand what love is and how we can actually develop that condition. There was an illustration I gave in the first century where a man continually built more and more things. What he did was he ripped down his old storehouses of grain and he built bigger ones and stuffed them full of wheat and all the other things that he needed, and animals and so forth. And then they wasn't big enough for him, so he tore all that down and built some bigger ones. And you know, many of us in our lives are doing that in a way right now. Not very many of us want to move from a two-bedroom place back to a little tin hut. We want to go from the tin hut to the two-bedroom place, to the three-bedroom place, to the four-bedroom place, to the mansion in the end. That's the general gist of many of our desires, right? In other words, we want many of our desires to be material in nature, and we want them to expand, right? We want them to grow. We want more enjoyment from our personal life. But what I said in the first century was, you don't know the time that you're going to die. One of the reasons why you don't know the time is because there are so many soul-determining factors that determine when you're going to die. Now, if you're at one with God, you never have to die at all. Right? That's also a truth. So you don't have to die, but often there are external events that do finish up causing your passing, just like it did in my first century life. So sooner or later you will probably pass. And you don't necessarily know when you're going to pass. You might have a few days' notice and sometimes a few weeks' notice, but you don't generally know when you're going to pass. So it would make sense then to find out as much as possible about what's going to happen when you pass, right now, would it not? Because if you don't find out now, when are you going to find out? Well, only probably after you pass. And it's going to be a lot harder then to find out the truth about what happens than it is to find out now. And there's a lot of reasons why that's the case, which we'll explain.